The movie Straw was a huge trigger for me. And I teach that we need to learn to respond to our triggers, not run from our triggers. How do we confront our pain? Triggers are just a reminder of our pain. And the movie Straw is being kind of presented as a single mother's journey and what can make her snap. So when I went into the film to watch the film, I'm not a single mother. I never was a single mother. So I didn't think that this film was going to trigger me. And I know we're not supposed to tell the ending of the film, but I can tell you that it was this huge punch in the face, the gut, every piece of my body physically, mentally, and emotionally went into like a shock. You see, through the whole film, you thought it was this underprivileged single mother in a low-income situation that just horrible things just kept happening and happening and happening, and she snapped. And we all feel like, gosh, at some point in our life, we felt like we were going to snap. And I think why this film is resonating with people so much, and because we all feel this overwhelm of life just hitting us and hitting us and hitting us. My name is Dr. B. I am a psychiatric nurse practitioner, but more importantly, my experience comes from real life. You see, I've lost 3 children and my husband over the course of 20 years. And when I watched this film, although I was empathizing with this single mother, I did not realize it was going to be a trigger. You see, at the end, the whole time, her child had just died. And it was a disassociative state because she believed that her child was still alive. And in that moment that I realized that in the film, I had to practice what I preach. I often say, triggers, you can't control triggers. They will come at you. And you can learn to expand. You can learn to confront that pain. There's a story, and I did fact check it, that when a storm is coming, buffalo run into the storm, which is counterintuitive. We often run away from the storm. But when a storm is coming, buffalo run into the storm. And why do they do that? Because if you confront it, the time in which you are experiencing it is shorter. We want to run from our triggers. We want to get away from the pain. It's been 3.5 years since my daughter's death, 8 years since my son's death. And I knew in that moment, even though I had a moment of shock, I stopped and cried. I knew that I had to run into and confront that pain of knowing dissociative states. Oftentimes when our pain is so intense, like losing a child, we'll have moments of lapsed time. We'll have moments where we don't know what's real. For a year, I would wake up in the morning and relive finding my child dead. And there were moments when I was triggered by something that I separated from my body. And thank goodness I didn't do anything stupid. But this movie is an example of a dissociative state. It's more than just, a single mother's journey. It is when you break, there is a separation from reality, and you can go in and out of that. And we see this in PTSD. And I was diagnosed with PTSD after losing my 3rd child. So in that moment, when I realized that I was watching, because I typically I would have avoided the movie if I knew that her child had died. Because I'm often faced with this every day, just in my own triggers in life, but also people come to me that lose children. I reach out to people who have lost a child. Just recently, a beautiful girl named Michaela, who was an acquaintance of Maya and mine, died in her sleep, just like Maya died. And I confronted that grief. I reached out to that mother. I am pouring my heart into that mother in hopes and prayer that she can find some of the healing that I have found. So when we talk about triggers, when you are triggered, whether it be from a movie or from a situation or someone who is experiencing something similar to you, can you confront that pain? Can you run into it like the buffalo runs into the storm? I wanted to call my documentary Confronting Grief, but the marketing people said it was too negative, right? But that's what I was doing in the documentary. I would love to share my story with you. I would love to give you a copy of my book, Pain and Purpose. And as you download that, you will be invited to watch the documentary of how do you actually confront this pain? How do you, like the buffalo, run into the storm? Because our natural instinct in every other animal runs away from the storm, shelters from the storm, hides from the storm. But when our pain is so deep and it's going to continue to impact us if we don't run into it and confront it and learn how to live in the pain. And that's what I did as I watched this movie. There's so many pieces of that 1 second when I realized that her child was dead that I identified with, that was a trigger for me. She had nothing left. I would have killed myself, or at least I would have thought about it. That scares me to have those kind of thoughts. It was only for a second and I got rid of it, right? But being authentic and vulnerable to you, it's important that I'm real with that initial thought that came to me. But the other thing was, this is not about a single mother. It is about the snap, the last straw, the thing that makes us break from reality. And losing a child is often that thing. I have seen many people 10, 20 years later not being able to find their joy. There are people who complete suicide after their child's death. Please do not give up on yourself, your purpose. So what did I do? I confronted that grief, that pain, that trauma. I sat in some meditation. I allowed myself to cry. I allowed myself to identify with that character. And I reminded myself that my daughter, my family is still here, that time and space is not real, that there is a spiritual component to our pain. And that reminds me of another example of the animal species, of a butterfly, a caterpillar coming out of the cocoon into a butterfly. If you were to cut open that cocoon to free the butterfly early, they would not be able to fly. It is the muscles in which they gain by pushing through that allows them to fly. And that is the same is true for our pain. No one can rescue you from your pain. I hope that you have a support system. I hope that people are there comforting you. I know that the people in my life have made a huge difference. But the actual work of confronting the pain and working through it is yours. And no one can do that for you. And just like the caterpillar becoming a butterfly, if you can work through that pain, you can find beauty and joy in it. The beauty and joy that I have found is a new spiritual awakening to that time and space is not real, and that my loved ones are right here with me. But that's my journey. What is your journey through your pain? Can you confront your pain? It's counterintuitive, but you will work through it faster. You will come out stronger if you don't run from it. If you run from it, it will always be chasing you. The last analogy is this idea that, you know, our brain is just like our muscles. We have to work out our muscles, break down our muscles for our muscles to get stronger. I'm talking about our physical muscles, right? Like you need to lift weights or stretch your muscles or your endurance to a certain limit to break them down, to cause pain in order to build up and to grow and to be stronger. The same is true for our brain. Although it's not technically a muscle, it is neural pathways that we are creating. If I can say, I'm going to confront my pain, I am not going to run from my triggers. Because the reality is you don't always know when you're going to be triggered. This is why this movie hit me so hard, because I wasn't expecting a trigger. But that's life. That's how it happens. And, you know, sometimes we say, well, you know, there should be trigger warnings there. But the reality is if there was a trigger warning on this film, it would have taken away the whole shock value of the end of the story, right? And it really did make it a powerful movie. And different than any other movie about a impoverished single mother, right? Like there has been other movies like that. But the creativity of this film is what made it great, but it was also what created a huge trigger for me as a woman who has lost children. That this disassociative state, this feeling as if you have snapped, is a reality when you have gone through so much loss. But what I'm trying to say here is don't run from your triggers. If you know they're coming, prepare for them. Like I do when I'm talking to someone who has just lost a child, and specifically in this situation where they lost their child exactly the same way I lost mine. Died in her sleep, likely from sudden unexpected death and epilepsy. I knew that was going to be a trigger, but I went straight into it. And by helping that mother, I am confronting my own pain and working through and processing my own pain. But watching this movie, it was an unknown trigger. I didn't know that it was going to come to that. And it wasn't just the fact that she had also lost a child. It's this dissociative state that I have experienced in the year after Maya's death. And this moment of, it's not worth living. Life is not worth living. But it is. And finding the joy, the purpose through the pain, I want to encourage you to do that. Props to Tyler Perry, one of my favorite movie makers. But you got me on this one. If you'd like to work with me, you could click the link below, get a free copy of my book, and you'll be invited to watch the documentary, to come to a live with me to answer any questions. But I do do some mentally strong intensives, both in group and in private, and I hope to work with you. Continue watching on to the next video.